So we're doing videos on a bunch of the stuff that we watched over the holidays that we got kind of behind on. We're trying to catch up. This video is going to be about Wheel of Time. The first season just finished up on Amazon Prime. So let's get into it and talk about what we thought. So my first thought about the new season of Wheel of Time, and I guess let me start by saying I have no experience with Wheel of Time. This is my first exposure, first contact with the IP, with the franchise. I know there's lots of books that people are big fans of and really enjoyed, but I have no experience with those, so I have no idea what's going on here. And with that being said, my initial thought is something felt a bit off about this whole series. It feels kind of like a 90s cheesy sword and sorcery show with a big expensive Amazon paint job on it. Like a really nice Pontiac Fiero with a Ferrari body kit. That's the kind of vibe I'm getting. Now don't get me wrong, the show's not junk and it's not trying to pretend to be something that it's not. The best comparison I can make is kind of like the old Hercules and Xena shows that were on when I was a kid. There was lots of highlights and good parts, but on the average, they were kind of meh. They were pretty mediocre. Wheel of Time gives me the same kind of vibe, but it's just prettier to look at. But it's kind of missing the charisma or the character that Kevin Sorbo or Lucy Lawless brought to those shows. They didn't really have that standout lead or person that really elevated the show. So let's get into some of the pros and cons. I always try and keep these videos relatively spoiler free. If you've seen the show, you know what happens. You don't need me to talk about it. You can probably put together what I'm referencing most of the time. If you haven't seen the show, I don't want to spoil stuff for you. So here we go. Pros: all the effects, the computer and practical effects looked pretty good. There was definitely some creature effects and stuff in there that they mixed some CG and some practical effects with that I think looked great. It was definitely one of my highlights and my favorite parts about the show. The Most of the CGI looked pretty good. There was a few spots that looked like they could have used a little more polish and a little more work, but on the most part, there wasn't a whole lot of things that stood out to me as being bad. The other big pro is the world and the stories they're trying to tell are super interesting. Like I said before, totally I'm not familiar at all with this IP or what's going on. So in the first season, they definitely set up an interesting world with the dynamic of how things work and the magic and stuff like that. How that works, I think, is a really great setup. How they did that, the stories that they're trying to tell, I think have a lot of potential, a lot of interesting plot beats that they're trying to hit. Um, so that's about it for the pros. Unfortunately, it's kind of a short list. The neutral list, things that I'm not sure whether it's bad or good, could go either way, or things that kind of evened themselves out, was the hit and miss costumes. A lot of the a lot of the outfits looked really, really generic and bland and plain and boring and just kind of didn't fit the world around them. Some of them were really great. There was definitely some awesome costumes, some of the pieces of armor and some of the looks that these guys had. It was really good in spots, and then there was other spots where he just felt like they didn't pay enough attention or it was an afterthought or somebody forgot about it. So it's a weird deal there. Like I said, high highs, low lows going on with the costume department there. Same thing with some of the fights and choreography. There's some really great stuff that stands out, and you're like, man, that looked really good. And then there's other stuff where you're just like, yeah, I don't know who was in charge of that, but you should probably take a closer look. Just spend more time, maybe. Cinematography, choreography, all that stuff is important, and some of them just kind of fall short. The other thing that kind of stood out to me was just the generic visuals and locations. They didn't really pop at all. None of them looked, like I said, I kind of mentioned in the pros, nothing looked really bad, but none of the locations they were at, none of the scenes that they shot were super impressive. There were some good spots. I think, Some of the early stuff in their little village there, that village looked great. Some of the sets looked pretty good, but it was just kind of forgettable in a lot of areas. None of the visuals really stood out. So it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either. We'll put it that way. Neutral game. Cons, as far as cons go, it the tone is a little weird. It feels like an R-rated Chronicles of Narnia show is the best way I can explain it. It looks and feels like it should be kind of targeted at younger audiences, that 12, 14-ish early teen stuff. That kind of seems like where it should be targeted, but then there's some brutal violence, lots of sexual themes, and it's super odd. There was even a kind of a weird instance where there was some nudity in there, and I'm like, "What? That's kind of an odd spot." It's kinda like walking into an elementary school and all the teachers are bikers and strippers. It's just a little weird. I don't know if that's how it is in the books, and maybe that's kinda what they're going for is this super nice, clean, world that's got spots of violence and tarnish and stuff like that. That might be what they were going for. If that's what they were going for, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt here a little bit. Do better. That's what I would say. It's just feels super weird. So to sum everything up, as far as season 1 goes, all in all, it felt kind of weak. In a market that's saturated with such strong competition, that's not great. However, I think the strong pre-existing fan base for this one could keep it afloat. I'm not sure how the fans of the books are reacting. I haven't really looked at anything. I want to keep my videos and my opinion as unbiased as possible, so I don't look at any other reviews or anything like that before I make these videos. So hopefully the fans enjoyed it and it's going to be enough to keep it going for season 2. I'm hoping the second season our third season, as far as we get further in, can turn this around and make it a must watch. Plenty of my favorite shows had shaky starts and a rough couple of seasons. The Star Trek Next Generation immediately pops to mind as an example. So I hope that they find their groove and are able to turn this into a mega hit and a must see. But for now, I think we're gonna have to I have to pass on this one. I don't think I would recommend it to anybody right now as far as just the time and getting into it. Like I said, hopefully by the second or third season, it'll make the slow or shaky first season worth the watch. If swords and sorcery are your thing and you're all caught up on every other show and you need something to watch to fill a gap, great. But if you skip this one, you're not missing out. So that's where we're at on Wheel of Time. If you disagree with what we said about it, or if you think we're on the money, or you think we're total idiots, just let us know. Definitely like and subscribe to our channel. We're trying to grow this channel and do stuff every day. We got a lot more stuff coming, a lot of plans for the future. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.